News Congress is trying to lock railroad workers into a deal that was struck in September as the deadline for a massive strike approaches. The House voted today to bind the industry and workers to that deal while adding some of the sick leave unions are asking for. 3 News Now reporter Isabella Basco talked to people on the front lines today about why some railroad workers are determined to fight for sick leave. And she joins us now. Good evening, Isabella.
Good evening, Mary. Railroad workers tell me they've never had sick time off. Instead, they've had to use their vacation time. But they're fighting for it now because the pandemic proved to be devastating for some. Jacob Forsgren is a railroad thermite welder who's sick at home with the flu. Since he has no sick time off, he has to use his PTO, but he needs his manager's approval.
I have an influence. It hasn't been fun by any means. Having to worry about whether or not I'm going to get paid for these days just complicates that.
George Loveland worked for the railroad for more than 18 years, who shares a similar story.
I've missed the birth of my children, some medical procedures my wife has had. I've had to go to work sick, miserable. I know I've infected my coworkers. I know they've infected me.
Conditions like these are why unions like the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way Employees Division are pushing for more sick time to not make decisions between their health and their finances. At the height of the pandemic, Joseph Nantista, who works for the union, says railroads initiated a 14-day quarantine period if railroaders were infected or exposed to the virus.
The financial impact was devastating on our employees.
Workers were entitled to some benefits of railroad retirement, but the amount is low. They got paid $82 a day.
Those members, they would get that same amount, that $82 a day for that entire time. And some of them were in the hospital for upwards of 3 to 5 months. And that's a tremendous blow.
The tentative agreement railroad workers and operators are discussing is a 4-year deal, but negotiations have taken so long, it will expire at the end of 2024.
The process is often drawn out and lengthy and frustrating.
But Nantista illustrates how devastating this impact proved to be.
We had members that lost their homes. There were assets that went sideways because of multiple exposures to COVID and multiple situations where they were removed from service for these 2-week periods.
And I reached out to Don Bacon for a statement which says, in part, I supported the 7-day sick leave resolution because quality of life is just as important as a pay raise. Now that bill is off to Senate. In the newsroom, Isabella Basco, 3 News Now.